Taemin Park stared at the massive view screen on the bridge of the Harmony's edge. Stars moved past like distant lights in the darkness. He had been on many ships before, but never one this big, never one carrying so many important people. Timar. Young man checked his communication console again. Everything was working perfectly. It had to be. Today was the most important day in galactic history, and he was just a small part of it. Park, status report, called Admiral Da-Yun Choi from her command chair. Her voice was calm, but Taemin could hear the tension underneath. All communication systems are working fine, Admiral, he replied. We have clear contact with all fleet groups. Admiral Choi nodded. She was one of the youngest admirals in human space, but she had earned her rank through years of fighting the Nexari. The alien swarm had been attacking human colonies for 3 years now. Every battle had been harder than the last, but this time was different. This time humanity was not fighting alone. The bridge doors opened with a soft hiss. Taemin turned to look and felt his breath catch in his throat. Commander Veltar walked onto the bridge, and the temperature seemed to drop by 10 degrees. The Altarian warrior was over 8 feet tall. His skin was dark blue and covered in scars that told stories of 100 battles. Each scar was a badge of honor among his people. The thermal lance on his back glowed with contained energy. Veltar had held the space station at Rigel for 3 months against impossible odds. Every soldier in the galaxy knew his name. Admiral Choi, Veltar said in his deep voice. My warriors are ready for battle. Thank you, Commander, the Admiral replied. Your reputation precedes you. Veltar's 4 eyes focused on Taemin for a moment. The young human felt like he was being measured and found wanting. Then the alien warrior moved to his position at the tactical station. Before Taemin could recover, another legend entered the bridge. Warsinger Korth of the Draknari stepped through the doors, and Taemin felt the vibrations of the alien's voice in his bones. Korth looked like a cross between a dragon and a bird. His feathers were bright red and gold, and when he spoke, his voice carried harmonics that could inspire courage in the hearts of any warrior. It was said that Korth's war songs had won battles before the first shot was fired. Greetings, honored allies, Korth sang, his voice like music. The songs of victory await us. Even Admiral Choi seemed impressed by the war singer's presence. Taemin tried to focus on his console, but he could not stop stealing glances at the legendary figures around him. The final member of the command team arrived last. High Strategist Xylon floated onto the bridge in his mobility sphere. The ancient Cereberi had no body as humans understood it. His brain sat in a tank of blue fluid, connected to thousands of tiny wires that let him think faster than any computer. Xylon had never lost a battle. His 4-dimensional thinking could see patterns that other minds could not grasp. Entire wars had been won by following his strategies. Probability calculations complete, Xylon announced in his mechanical voice. Current enemy force composition suggests standard Nexari attack patterns. Victory probability, 67.4%. Taemin felt a bit better hearing those odds. If High Strategist Xylon said they had a good chance, then maybe they really did. Ijin, Kim, his childhood friend and now a tactical analyst, moved to stand beside his station. Can you believe this? She whispered. We're actually serving alongside them. Taemin nodded. He and Heejin had grown up together on the colony world of New Sol. They had joined the military together, dreaming of making a difference. But neither of them had ever imagined they would serve beside such famous warriors. Incoming transmission from Fleet Command, Taemin announced. He pressed some buttons, and a hologram appeared above the central table. Fleet Admiral Raxtor of the Vegan Republic materialized in blue light. The insect-like alien's mandibles clicked as he spoke. All units, prepare for final briefing. Long-range sensors have confirmed Nexari fleet movement toward the Kepler 442 system. The mood on the bridge became serious. Kepler 442b was home to 12 billion people of many different species. If the Nexari reached that world, it would be the worst disaster in galactic history. The enemy force is larger than we first thought, Admiral Raxtor continued. Current estimates put their numbers at over 2 million ships. This is the largest Nexari swarm ever recorded. Taman felt his stomach drop. 2 million ships? How could anyone fight against odds like that? Commander, Veltar stepped forward. My warriors have faced worse odds before. We will not fail. The songs of our ancestors will guide us to victory, Warsinger Korth added, his voice carrying notes of determination. High Strategist Xylon's sphere rotated slowly, adjusting probability calculations based on new data. Victory probability, now 43.2%. The number sent a chill through the bridge. Less than half. But these were the greatest warriors in the galaxy. If anyone could win against such odds, it would be them. Admiral Choi stood up from her command chair. All hands, this is Admiral Choi. In 6 hours we will engage the enemy. We fight not just for our own worlds, but for every free being in the galaxy. The Nexari consume everything in their path. They leave only death and emptiness behind them. She paused, looking around the bridge at the assembled legends and ordinary humans alike. Today, we make our stand. Today, we show the galaxy what free peoples can do when they stand together. Taman felt a surge of pride. He was just a communications officer, but he was part of something bigger than himself. He was part of history. The ship's alarms began to sound. Red lights flashed throughout the bridge. On the main screen, thousands of dark shapes appeared at the edge of the star system. The Nexari had arrived. All stations, battle alert, Admiral Choi ordered. This is what we came here to do. Taman watched the enemy fleet approach and tried not to think about the odds. Instead, he focused on the legends around him. Commander, Veltar stood ready for battle, his thermal lance humming with power. Warsinger Korth began a low battle hymn that filled the bridge with courage. High Strategist Xylon's sphere glowed as he calculated attack patterns. These were the greatest warriors the galaxy had ever known. With them leading the way, how could they possibly lose? The battle for Kepler 442 was about to begin. The first wave of Nexari ships looked like a swarm of angry insects against the stars. Their bioships were dark and twisted, grown rather than built. Each one pulsed with organic light as they moved through space. Taman watched his communication screens as reports came in from across the fleet. Hundreds of ships from dozens of species had gathered to face this threat. But seeing the enemy up close made his hands shake slightly. All units attack formation Gamma 7, High Strategist Xylon announced. His mechanical voice was calm, but Taman could see the alien's brain working faster than ever in its tank. Thousands of calculations flowed across his screens. Commander, Veltar moved to the front of the bridge. His thermal lance was now active, glowing bright white with contained energy. My assault teams are ready. We will board their command ships and cut out their hearts. Warsinger Korth began a battle song that made the air itself vibrate. The harmonics filled every corner of the bridge, and Taman felt his fear being replaced by determination. This was what the Warsinger's voice could do. Turn ordinary soldiers into heroes. First contact in 30 seconds, Heejin reported from her tactical station. Enemy ships are moving into attack formation. Admiral Choi stood behind her command chair watching the main screen. All human ships maintain formation, support our allies, and watch for opportunities. The battle began with a flash of light that nearly blinded everyone on the bridge. The Altarian heavy cruisers fired first, their energy weapons cutting through, space-like swords of pure fire. The Nexari bioships responded with streams of acid and clouds of razor-sharp spores. Taman had never seen anything like it. Commander Veltar's warriors fought like demons. Their ships moved through the enemy formation, cutting and slashing with precision that seemed impossible. Every movement was perfect. Every shot found its target. Thermal lance batteries, full. Power, Veltar commanded through the communication system. His voice carried to every Altarian ship in the fleet. Where his warriors went, Nexari ships died. Warsinger Korth's voice rose above the noise of battle. His war song coordinated the movements of the Draknari fleet with supernatural precision. Their ships moved like dancers, flowing around enemy attacks while delivering devastating counterstrikes. By the ancient songs we shall not be moved, Korth sang, and every Draknari pilot seemed to gain new strength. Their formation held even when surrounded by 10 times their number. High strategist Zelon's predictions proved flawless. Every enemy movement had been calculated in advance. When the Nexari tried to flank the coalition fleet, Zelon's forces were already in position to block them. Probability of enemy movement to Sector 7, 94.3%, Zelon announced. Directing Reserve Squadron Alpha to intercept. The alien genius was right again. The Nexari ships arrived exactly where he said they would, only to find the coalition forces waiting for them. Taimin felt amazed watching these legends work. This was what real warriors looked like. This was how battles were won. The human ships did their part, but it seemed small compared to the incredible displays around them. Admiral Choi's tactics were solid and reliable. Her captains followed orders and supported their allies well, but they were not performing miracles like the others. Captain Jae Hyuk Yoon led a squadron of human fighters in a standard attack run. They flew in perfect formation and hit their targets accurately. It was good work, but nothing that would be remembered in the history books. Engineer Woo Jin Lee kept the ship's systems running at peak efficiency. His damage control teams fixed problems quickly and kept the weapons firing. Again, it was excellent work, but not legendary. For 2 hours, the battle seemed to be going well. The coalition forces were holding their ground against the Nexari swarm. Enemy ships burned and died under the assault of the legendary warriors. Taimin began to think they might actually win. The legends were proving why their names were known across the galaxy. Commander Veltar's personal ship had destroyed over 50 enemy vessels. Warsinger Korth's coordinated attacks had shattered 3 Nexari formations. High strategist Zelon had not made a single tactical error. Then everything changed. "Admiral, we have a problem," Hyejin called out. Her voice was tight with worry. "Long-range sensors are picking up something big." The main screen shifted to show the edge of the star system. At first, Taimin saw nothing unusual. Then his eyes adjusted and he gasped. A shadow was moving between the stars. It was huge, larger than any ship had a right to be. As it came closer, the sensors began to give readings that made no sense. "Size estimate?" Admiral Choi asked. "Approximately 800 kilometers in diameter," Hyejin replied. "Mass readings are..." "Admiral, this thing is the size of a small moon." The shadow resolved into the most terrifying sight Taimin had ever seen. It was a Nexari Queen ship, but unlike any that had been encountered before. Its surface crawled with weapon ports and launch bays. Streams of smaller ships poured from its sides like blood from a wound. "By the thermal fires," Commander Veltar whispered. Even the legendary warrior sounded shaken. Warsinger Korth's battle song faltered for the first time. The harmony that had held the Draknari fleet together began to weaken. High strategist Zelon's sphere spun rapidly as new calculations flooded his screens. "Adjusting tactical assessment," he announced. "Enemy force strength increasing by 400%. Additional ships launching from the Queen ship. Current count, over 1 million escort vessels." The number hit the bridge like a physical blow. 1 million ships, plus the Queen ship itself, which was large enough to carry weapons that could destroy entire fleets. "New probability calculation," Zelon continued, his mechanical voice somehow quieter than before. "Victory probability 0.003%, less than 1 chance in 1,000. Taimin felt his heart sink. Even the greatest strategist in the galaxy was admitting they could not win. Admiral Choi stared at the screen for a long moment. The Queen ship was moving toward the planet below, where 12 billion people waited helplessly. Its escort fleet spread out like a plague across the stars. "All ships fall back to defensive positions around the planet," she ordered. "We need to buy the evacuation fleets more time." Commander Veltar gripped his thermal lance tighter. "My warriors will fight to the last breath. The songs of defiance will echo through eternity," Warsinger Korth added. But his voice carried notes of despair that had not been there before. For the first time since the battle began, Taimin saw doubt in the eyes of his heroes. The greatest warriors in the galaxy were looking at something they could not defeat. The Nexari Queen ship continued its approach, and with it came the shadow of death for an entire world. The legends had given everything they had, but it was not enough. As Taemin watched the impossible enemy approach, he wondered if this was how legends died, not in glorious victory, but facing odds that no amount of skill or courage could overcome. The real battle was about to begin. The Queen ship grew larger on the main screen with each passing minute. Its surface writhed with alien life and weapon ports opened like hungry mouths. The escort fleet had spread out in a perfect formation that seemed to cover half the star system. All fleet commanders report to battle stations, Admiral Choi announced. Her voice was steady, but Taemin could see the tension in her shoulders. We're going to make one last push. High Strategist Xylon floated closer to the central command table. His brain tank glowed brighter as he worked on new calculations. Proposed strategy: coordinated assault on the Queen ship's primary neural cluster. If we can disrupt its command functions, the escort fleet will lose coordination. Commander Veltar stepped forward, his thermal lance humming with power. My warriors will lead the assault. We have broken fortress ships before. The war songs will carry us through their defenses, war singer Korth added. His voice still carried power, but Taemin could hear the strain underneath. The plan was desperate, but it was their only chance. Every ship in the coalition fleet would attack the Queen ship at once. The legendary warriors would lead the way, using their incredible skills to punch through the enemy defenses. Taemin watched the preparations with growing anxiety. He had seen what these heroes could do, but this enemy was different. It was not just bigger, it felt smarter, more dangerous than anything they had faced before. Human ships will provide covering fire, Admiral Choi announced. We'll keep the escort fleet busy while our allies attack the primary target. It was a good plan. It used everyone's strengths. But as Taemin looked at the odds, he could not shake the feeling that something was wrong. The attack began at exactly 1400 hours. Commander Veltar's assault ships charged straight at the Queen ship's hull, their thermal lances cutting through clouds of defensive spores. His warriors moved with the precision that had made them famous across the galaxy. War singer Korth's voice rose in a battle hymn that coordinated the movement of over 1,000 ships. The Draknari fleet flowed around the Queen ship like water, striking at weak points with perfect timing. High Strategist Xylon directed the overall assault with mathematical precision. Every ship moved exactly where it was supposed to be. Every attack came at the perfect moment. For 30 minutes, it looked like the plan might work. Veltar's warriors carved deep wounds in the Queen ship's hull. Korth's coordinated strikes overwhelmed sections of the enemy's defenses. Xylon's tactics kept the coalition forces one step ahead of the escort fleet. Taemin began to hope again. These were legends for a reason. They had done impossible things before. Maybe they could do it again. Then the Queen ship revealed its true nature. Admiral, something's wrong, Hyojin called out. Her tactical screen was flashing with warnings. The Queen ship's defensive patterns are changing. It's learning. Taemin saw what she meant. The enemy was adapting to every attack. Where Veltar's thermal lances had cut through the hull, new armor was growing. Where Korth's ships had found weak points, new weapons were emerging. Impossible, High Strategist Xylon announced. No Nexari command structure has shown this level of adaptive intelligence. But the evidence was right there on the screens. The Queen ship was not just defending itself, it was studying their tactics and improving its responses in real time. Commander Veltar's next attack run met a wall of fire that had not been there moments before. 3 of his ships were destroyed, instantly. Fall back, he ordered. Regroup for secondary assault. Warsinger Korth tried to adjust his coordination songs, but the Queen ship seemed to predict every movement. His perfectly timed attacks began to fall apart as the enemy countered each one. Tactical analysis failure, Xylon reported. Enemy response patterns exceed all known parameters. Recalculating. Taemin had never heard the ancient strategist sound confused before. But the Queen ship was doing things that no Nexari force had ever done. It was thinking like a collection of different species all at once. The truth hit him like a physical blow. This queen was not just controlling the swarm, it had absorbed the knowledge of every species the Nexari had ever conquered. It knew Altarian tactics because it had consumed Altarian warriors. It understood Draknari coordination because it had devoured their commanders. It could predict Xylon's strategies because it had eaten other tactical geniuses. It's using our own knowledge against us, Taemin said quietly. Admiral Choi heard him. What did you say, Park? The queenship, Admiral. It's not just smart. It has the memories of everyone the Nexari have ever killed. It knows how we think because it's eaten people like us before. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. Every tactic the coalition used was known to the enemy. Every strategy had been seen before. They were fighting themselves. The queenship proved his point by launching a counterattack that targeted the exact weaknesses each species tried to hide. Altarian ships found themselves facing weapons designed specifically to penetrate thermal lance armor. Draknari formations were broken by disruption songs that turned their own coordination against them. Commander Veltar's flagship took a direct hit. Taemin watched in horror as the legendary warrior's ship spun out of control, trailing atmosphere and debris. Emergency signals flashed across his communication console. Commander Veltar's ship is badly damaged, he reported. Life support is failing. They're abandoning ship. Warsinger Korth's voice cracked as he tried to maintain his battle songs. The strain of fighting an enemy that knew exactly how to counter him was too much. His ship shuddered under a barrage of sonic weapons that turned his own voice frequencies against him. I cannot maintain the harmony, Korth gasped. The songs are being corrupted. High Strategist Xylon's sphere spun wildly as his calculations collapsed. All tactical models compromised. Enemy has perfect counter strategies for every known approach. Victory probability approaches 0. One by one, Taemin watched his heroes fall, not because they lacked courage or skill, but because they were fighting an enemy that knew them better than they knew themselves. The coalition fleet began to break apart. Ships fled in all directions as their commanders realized the hopelessness of their situation. The greatest warriors in the galaxy had been defeated not by superior force, but by superior knowledge. Only the human ships remained in formation. Admiral Choi held them together even as chaos erupted around them. All human vessels maintain positions, she ordered. We're not done yet. Taemin looked around the bridge. Veltar was gone, his escape pod drifting somewhere in the debris field. Korth was silent, his voice finally broken. Xylon's sphere had gone dark as the ancient mind tried to process its first real defeat. The legends had fallen. The queenship and its million escorts moved steadily toward the planet below, where 12 billion people waited for death. For the first time in the battle, humanity stood alone. The bridge of the Harmony's edge felt empty without the legendary warriors. Commander Veltar's escape pod had been recovered, but he was badly injured and unconscious. Warsinger Korth sat in the medical bay, his voice box damaged beyond repair. High Strategist Xylon's sphere remained dark and silent. Taemin looked at his communication console. Most of the coalition fleet had scattered. Only 47 human ships remained, facing an enemy force of over 1 million vessels. Status report, Admiral Choi said. Her voice was calm, but Taemin could see the weight of command crushing down on her shoulders. 38 cruisers, 6 destroyers, and 3 support vessels, Yejin reported. Total crew complement, about 15,000 people, 15,000 humans against 1 million alien ships, and a queen the size of a moon. The numbers were so impossible that they almost seemed funny. Orders, Admiral? Captain Jae-hyuk-yoon asked over the communication system. His fighter squadron was still in formation, waiting for commands that everyone knew would probably be their last. Admiral Choi stared at the main screen for a long moment. The queenship was only 2 hours away from the planet. Soon, 12 billion people would start dying, and there was nothing the remaining human force could do to stop it. We're going to do what humans do best, she said finally. What's that, Admiral? Taemin asked. She smiled, and for the first time since the battle began, it reached her eyes. "We're going to try something stupid." Admiral Choi turned to the engineering station. "Wu Jin, I need you to tell me something. Can we modify our communication arrays to carry a computer virus?" Engineer Wu Jin Lee looked up from his console. "A virus? Admiral, our systems aren't designed for that kind of attack." "I didn't ask if they were designed for it. I asked if you could make them do it anyway." Wu Jin thought for a moment. "Maybe. If we rerouted the power from the main weapons and reconfigured the signal processors, it would be dangerous. The whole system might overload." "Do it," Admiral Choi ordered. Haye Jin leaned forward at her tactical station. "Admiral, even if we can create a virus, how do we get close enough to upload it? The Queen ship's defenses will destroy us long before we reach transmission range." "We don't transmit it," Admiral Choi replied. "We deliver it personally." The bridge fell silent as everyone realized what she was suggesting. Someone would have to fly into the Queen ship itself and upload the virus directly to its neural core. "That's impossible," Heejin whispered. "No one has ever survived inside a Nexari hive structure." "No one has ever tried," Admiral Choi corrected. "Other species have codes of honor that prevent suicide missions. They have ancient traditions that value preservation over victory. We don't." Taemin felt something stirring in his chest. It was not hope exactly, but something close to it. The Admiral was right. Humans did things differently. "I volunteer," he said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. Taemin felt his cheeks burn, but he kept talking. "I know the communication systems better than anyone. If we're going to upload a virus, you need someone who understands how the arrays work." "Park, that's suicide," Haye Jin said. "Maybe," Taemin replied. "But if we don't try, 12 billion people die for sure. At least this way, we have a chance." Captain Jae-hyuk Yoon's voice came over the speakers. "I'll fly the mission. My fighter can get through their defenses better than a larger ship." "I'm going too," Engineer Mi-sun Kang announced from her station. "If the virus doesn't work, maybe I can sabotage their systems manually." Admiral Choi looked around the bridge. These were not legendary warriors with centuries of experience. They were ordinary people who had decided to do something extraordinary. "This is insane," Heejin said. But then she smiled. "I'll create the virus. If you're going to try something this crazy, at least the software should work." Over the next hour, the human fleet worked frantically to prepare for the impossible mission. Engineer Wu Jin modified a captured Nexari biopod to carry the team. Haye Jin created a virus that would attack the Queen ship's neural network. Other crew members volunteered for support roles, knowing they might never see their friends again. Taemin suited up in biohazard gear that probably would not protect him from the horrors inside the Queen ship. As he checked his equipment, he thought about his childhood on New Seoul. He remembered playing with Heejin in the colony gardens, dreaming about adventures among the stars. He had wanted to be a hero, like the legends he had read about. Now he realized that real heroes were not born legendary. They were ordinary people who chose to do the right thing when everything was on the line. "The biopod is ready," Captain Jae-hyuk reported. "Navigation computer is programmed with the best route to the Queen ship's neural core." "Virus upload is complete," Heejin added. "Once you're inside, plug this data chip into any neural interface. The virus should spread through their entire network." Taemin took the chip and put it in his chest pocket. Such a small thing to carry the hopes of 12 billion people. Admiral Choi came over to him. "Park, you don't have to do this. We can find another way." "With respect, Admiral, we both know there is no other way," Taemin replied. "This is what we came here to do." She nodded and stepped back. "Then go save the galaxy, son." Taemin, Captain. Jae-hyuk and Engineer Mi-sun climbed into the biopod. The organic ship felt alive around them, its walls pulsing with alien rhythms. Captain Jae-hyuk took the pilot position while Mi-sun worked on the technical systems. "Launch in 30 seconds, Admiral Choi announced over the communication system. "Remember, you just need to get the virus into their network. Don't try to be heroes." Taemin almost laughed. "Don't try to be heroes." They were 3 humans in a stolen alien ship about to fly into a hive structure the size of a moon. If that was not being heroes, he did not know what was. The biopod launched from the Harmony's edge and flew toward the Queen ship. Behind them, the remaining human fleet prepared for one final battle to keep the enemy distracted. As they approached the massive alien vessel, Tai Min realized something important. He was no longer thinking about the legends he had admired. He was thinking about his friends, his family, and the billions of people counting on him. Maybe that was what made humans different. They did not fight for glory or honor or ancient traditions. They fought for each other. The Queen ship loomed ahead of them, and Tai Min prepared to do something that no legend had ever attempted. The inside of the Queen ship was like flying through a nightmare. The walls were alive, pulsing with veins that carried strange fluids. Organic lights flickered in patterns that hurt to look at directly. The air itself felt thick and wrong. Captain Jae-hyuk guided the biopod through tunnels that seemed to change shape around them. Navigation says the neural core is 12 kilometers ahead, he reported. But these passages keep shifting. Engineer Mi-sun worked frantically at her console. The ship is scanning us. I'm trying to make our biopod look like it belongs here, but I don't know how long the disguise will hold. Tae Min clutched the data chip containing Hyejin's virus. It seemed impossible that something so small could stop something so massive. But then again, humans had always been good at doing impossible things. They flew deeper into the Queen ship, past chambers filled with growing Nexari warriors and factories that produced the bioships of the swarm. Tae Min saw things that would give him nightmares for the rest of his life, assuming he lived that long. Contact ahead, Captain Jae-hyuk announced. Looks like security drones. 3 Nexari warrior forms emerged from the walls like spiders. They moved toward the biopod with predatory grace. Their acid weapons began to glow. Hold course, Tae Min said. If we act like we belong here, maybe they'll ignore us. For a terrifying moment, the warrior forms surrounded the biopod. Tae Min held his breath as alien sensors examined their stolen ship. Then, apparently satisfied, the guards returned to their positions. That was too close, Mi-sun whispered. They continued deeper into the ship. The passages became larger and more complex. Strange symbols appeared on the walls, the language of a species that communicated through bioelectrical impulses. There, Captain Jae-hyuk pointed ahead. That has to be it. The neural core was a vast chamber at the heart of the Queen ship. In the center, a massive brain the size of a building floated in a tank of glowing fluid. Thousands of neural cables connected it to every part of the ship, but it was not just one brain. As they got closer, Tai Min could see that it was made up of pieces from dozens of different species. The Queen had absorbed the minds of every race the Nexari had conquered, combining their knowledge into one terrible intelligence. By all the stars, Mi-sun breathed. It's beautiful and horrible at the same time. The biopod landed on a platform near the brain tank. Tae Min checked his equipment one more time. Remember the plan. I upload the virus while you 2 watch for guards. If this goes wrong, get out of here. We're not leaving without you, Captain Jae-hyuk said firmly. Tae Min smiled. That was so typically human, refusing to abandon a friend even when it made no tactical sense. They left the biopod and approached the neural interface stations. The platform was covered with organic computers that connected directly to the Queen's mind. Tae Min found a port that looked compatible with the data chip. Here goes nothing, he said, and plugged in the virus. For a moment, nothing happened. Then alarms began to sound throughout the chamber. The Queen's brain pulsed with angry red light. The upload is working, Mi-sun reported, watching her scanner. But it's going slowly. The Queen's firewalls are stronger than we expected. More warrior forms began emerging from the walls, dozens of them moving with deadly purpose toward the platform. Company, Captain Jae-hyuk shouted. He pulled out his sidearm and began firing at the approaching aliens. Tae Min watched the upload progress bar crawl forward. 30%. 40%. The virus was spreading through the Queen's neural network, but not fast enough. The warrior forms reached the platform. Captain Jae-hyuk and Engineer Mi-sun fought desperately to hold them back, but there were too many. "Tae-min, we need to go now," Mi-sun called out. "Not yet," he replied. 60%. Just a little more time." But time was running out. The guards were overwhelming his friends. In seconds, they would reach the neural interface and destroy the connection. Tae-min made a decision that would have horrified the legendary warriors he had once admired. Instead of just uploading the virus, he grabbed the neural interface cable and plugged it directly into his own suit's communication system. Pain exploded through his head as the Queen's mind touched his own. Suddenly, he could feel the thoughts of the massive alien intelligence. It was like standing in a hurricane of pure hatred and hunger. But something unexpected happened. The Queen's mind had been built to absorb and control other species, but human consciousness was different. Where other minds had structure and order, human thoughts were chaotic and unpredictable. Taemin's individuality, his capacity for hope and sacrifice, acted like a virus in the Queen's perfectly ordered system. The alien mind had consumed thousands of warriors and strategists, but it had never encountered anything like human stubbornness. "I won't let you hurt them," Taemin said, and pushed his thoughts into the neural network. The Queen's brain began to convulse. Throughout the ship, Nexari warriors stopped in confusion as they felt something they had never experienced before: individual free will. Taemin shared memories of his childhood with Hyejin, his decision to join the military, his friendship with his crewmates. He showed the hive mind what it meant to choose your own path, to sacrifice for others, to hope against impossible odds. The neural network began to fracture. Across the swarm, individual Nexari suddenly found themselves thinking their own thoughts instead of following the Queen's commands. Ship formations broke apart as pilots decided to fly in different directions. "What have you done?" The Queen's voice echoed in Taemin's mind. "I showed you what it means to be human," he replied. The Queenship shuddered as its systems failed. The massive brain writhed in its tank, no longer able to control the million ships of the swarm. Without central coordination, the Nexari fleet began to scatter in all directions. Captain Jae-hyuk and Engineer Mi-sun pulled Taemin away from the neural interface. He was unconscious, blood trickling from his nose, but he was alive. "The ship is tearing itself apart," Mi-sun reported. "We need to get out of here now." They carried Taemin back to the biopod and launched just as the Queenship began to collapse. Behind them, the neural core exploded in a flash of light that could be seen across the star system. The Harmony's Edge recovered the biopod, just as the Queenship finished destroying itself. On the bridge, Admiral Choi watched in amazement as the Nexari swarm broke apart. Ships flew in random directions, their crews no longer following orders, but thinking for themselves. "Report," she ordered as the rescue team brought Taemin to the medical bay. "The virus worked, Admiral," Hyejin announced. "But more than that, Park somehow infected their entire hive mind with human consciousness. They're not just defeated, they're free." Later, as Taemin recovered in the medical bay, he received visitors. Commander Veltar, his wounds bandaged, but his pride intact, came to thank him personally. War singer Korth, his voice damaged but his spirit unbroken, sang a quiet song of gratitude. High strategist Xylon, his calculations finally including factors he had never considered before, admitted that he had learned something new about warfare. "You fought beside legends," Commander Veltar said, "and then you showed us what legends really look like." Taemin shook his head. "I'm not a legend. I'm just a communications officer who got lucky." "No," War singer Korth said, his broken voice still carrying power. "You are something more dangerous than a legend. You are human." Months later, when the reports were written and the medals distributed, the galaxy's understanding of humanity changed forever. They were no longer seen as the newcomers who provided reliable support. They were recognized as the species that refused to accept defeat, even when facing impossible odds. Other races began studying human psychology, trying to understand their unique combination of stubborn optimism and creative desperation. Military. Academies added courses on human tactics, which seemed to consist mainly of, "Try something no one expects, even if it's crazy. Tae-min returned to New Seoul with a new understanding of heroism. He had fought beside the greatest warriors in the galaxy and learned that true courage was not about being the strongest or smartest. It was about caring enough to try the impossible when everything was on the line. The Nexari were no longer a threat, but they were no longer monsters either. Across their former territory, individual aliens were learning what it meant to think for themselves. Some joined the coalition as allies. Others simply left to find their own paths among the stars. And in quiet moments, when Tae-min looked up at the night sky, he remembered the day when humanity stood alone against impossible odds and refused to surrender. That was when he learned that the greatest legends were not the ones written in history books. They were the ones ordinary people wrote with their own lives when everything mattered most.